Oh my God.
We are so happy. I'm now here with Harjit. He's a very good guy, and I'm on live on Twitter with him. And we are discussing tomorrow's referendum for Khalistan in Ottawa. This is, of course, very important. The eyes of the free world are on this moment, and I'm very much looking forward to have a big success in Ottawa. I hope the Canadian authorities will fully be supportive of this important referendum for freedom of Khalistan. And I wish that a lot of success because, as you know, I'm absolutely in favor of freedom for Khalistan, for ex-India. This is very important for the free world because India is a genocidal maniac state allied with Russia, which is similar kind of level, even worse in Ukraine. They make a lot of atrocities and genocide. And Khalistan is an ally of Ukraine. You stand with the free world. I'm very happy about that. And so I'm very happy to be on your show today. Harjit Singh, please, you can ask me anything you want, but let's focus on tomorrow's big day and about what the free world can do for Khalistan. Please,
Yeah,
Harjit.
yeah.
Thanks
No,
for the invitation.
yeah, thank you, Gunther, for taking time out. And finally, we talk. We've been, DMing each other, and we really appreciate as a Sikh and a Khalistani. I have been following your Twitter account, and I really appreciate all the support you have been giving, and also giving us the time today. Um, but I would like to start with a bit more about yourself because there's so much curiosity in now the Sikh world, and as well as the Indian world, and I would say all the other
Ex-India.
ex.
Soon ex-India. Don't forget.
I would say that people of subcontinent, even in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, I think you have developed a bit of fine following. If you can just tell them like what your story has been, and and then we can talk about how you got interested in Khalistan and ex-India.
I'm 57 years old, Austrian economist. I was born in Linz and I live now in Vienna, Austria. And you're all very welcome. We are friendly people. I'm not a diabolic economist, as the Indian media on CNN India has called me. I'm very nice person, and everybody from India, from ex-India, from Bangladesh, from Pakistan, from anywhere in the world is welcome in Austria. We are very friendly people, but we just don't like Russian genocide against Ukraine. And this is also my experience because I have been working in the former countries of ex-Yugoslavia, which is the role model for ex-India. I've worked in Kosovo, in Macedonia, in Montenegro. I'm a development consultant, development economist. So my expertise is to make poor, broken countries rich again and to see what they can do and to really improve the livelihood of the people. So my interest is in a secure and prosperous future for everybody in the world, no matter what religion, no matter what ethnicity. Everybody has the right for security, for freedom, and for prosperity. And this is also possible for India. And if India is not doing that, is not generating that, securing or suppressing people, what India is doing today, and then I feel totally legitimate to call for ex-India because the successor states of India, similar like the successor state of ex-Yugoslavia, which I know very well, or the successor states of the Soviet Union, which I also know very well, these successor states of ex-India will live much better than under some kind of Modi tyranny. And coming to my background, I lived basically 20 years abroad in Brussels, Kosovo, Ukraine, Albania. It's a very nice country, by the way. And I'm very happy now to live since 5 years back in Vienna. And I'm an economist. I'm a happy person. I'm nice. I'm not diabolic. And I'm actually a very friendly person. But I want that the Indians live much better than they do now. And as you see, this is not okay what Modi is doing, not his foreign policy, not his internal policy. Nothing of him is okay, actually. And I found out the last years how bad it is. And so I campaign now for this Yugoslavian scenario for India. And then the successor states will live much freer. And
Yeah, no,
yes, I'm also chairman of the Austrian Committee for NATO Enlargement. This is an activity of mine because I'm for economic reform, but I'm also as an economist. But it's very important security provision. Security provision is the basis of freedom. because if you cannot be sure that your property and your life is secure, then you cannot invest, you cannot prosper, you cannot live freely. And that's why we need NATO very strong. And that's why I also support my native Austria to join NATO and Ukraine to join NATO. And I'm a very big supporter of Ukraine, not only because I live there, because these are really nice people and very good people. They have done nothing bad. And Putin, with his Russian war machine, is attacking, killing them, torturing them, and raping them. And that's, of course, a total disaster. And everybody in the free world must stand with Ukraine now. And as the Indian government is not standing with Ukraine, but stands with Russia, they have lost the legitimacy to be a good part of the global community of democracies. Mr. Modi has chosen BRICS and Shanghai Cooperation. He kissed the ring finger of Putin like he would be a servant of Putin. For me, this is all totally unacceptable, and that's why I'm so angry. I'm very angry on Mr. Modi, and I'm very angry on his policy in the last 3.5 years. And I call now for ex-India here from Vienna, and the faster, the better for the world.
Yeah. No, thank you, Gunther, for that introduction. I think that gives us a sense where you come from. Gunther, India has always been very close to Russia in Cold War days, if you remember and jog your memory.
Since
Moscow,
71, I think the treaty was signed, the
yeah, even,
Soviet-Indian Friendship Treaty.
yeah, even if you remember the Moscow Olympics, which became very infamous, and you know
In
which was the country which actually went there and participated in spite of the all world boycotting. We don't need to name that country. Hopefully, people know. And
India,
now, yes,
India was always very strongly allied with the most terrible regime in the world, the Soviet Union.
that is correct.
That
Yeah,
says everything about India. Must be axed.
yeah. So, and then now India has stood again with Russia. Why, in your opinion, is that been so? Why India is being called or perceived in mainstream media as a democracy? Why does India not stand up with open democracies, in your opinion, from whatever you've learned?
It's a good question. Basically, India is very smart to have inherited the structures of the British Empire. And Britain is, of course, a democracy. So you have the West democracy, while in reality, it's a kind of terrible system of majority rule of a very specific religion. And that's, of course, an abuse of democracy, because democracy means the protection of everyone, and democracy means the minority rights. And this doesn't exist in that form in India today. And so then, of course, when you have the vestiges, the instruments and the tools of democracy, you can portray yourself as a democracy in order to play both sides. And this is the Modi strategy, and it is basically since 70 years, it's the strategy of India to sit on both sides, to get military aid from the Russians and the Soviets, and then to be basically a Russian ally, while behaving as they would be the bad conscience of the free world, and telling everybody not to be imperialist, while internally to be colonizing so many people of the Indian subcontinent in this kind of imperial legacy system of India. And that's they do quite successfully, But now the turning point has come, and we have understood 3.5 years of supporting genocide in Ukraine. You can no longer think that we are fools. We see behind the masquerade of Mr. Grandfather, nice guy, Christmas Santa Claus, Mr. Modi, who presents himself as the voice of reason of the world. But in reality, he is an ally of genocidal Putin. And so, no more. We will not tolerate this anymore. And you see already the measures are getting very, very hard, and they already start to cave in, because now the pressure is really huge. And it will come to the breaking point in India, because the internal structures are simply there, not existing. There's no legitimacy in the Indian government to rule its people as long as they behave as terrible internationally and internally as they do.
Right. That's right. I sometimes call Gunther, India is like Hitler's dream for Europe come true, because it is like it is of multiple nations forcibly put under one system of government, because and then all the decisions being decided by one majority. It is tomorrow if I put all of Europe under one government and say we will just take a majority vote and take all decision, it'll probably be like the two most populous countries telling everybody else that what they have to do. And it will be a terrible tragedy for Europe or anybody to then have their own language, culture being liberated by the majoritarian impulse. And so that is what is happening in India, wherein we have a specific majority, which even not majority, you just need 33% of votes to gain power in India. And that 33% is now saying, hey, you Sikhs, you can't have your language, you can't have your freedom of religion, you have to follow my language, my freedom of religion. I will take all your resources and you get nothing. And we see this problem in with Sikhs, which is now the Khalistan movement, and we'll come to that. But it's not just that. We have Kashmir issue in India. We have northeastern ethnic and linguistic minorities who have been, exploited, genocided for last 79 years. We have the southern minorities who are being repressed. So why has India been able to get away for so long? Is my
That's
question.
a, that's a good question. Probably the truth is that the West didn't care very much, yeah, because India thinks it's the neighbor of the world, the center of the world, but in reality, it's a sideshow. And we really didn't really care because the real confrontation in the world is, of course, in East Asia and in Eastern Europe.
Mm,
This is at the fault lines between the Soviet Union. This is about Poland, about Ukraine. And this is where the European world and the Russian world are crashing on the West. And the other side is, of course, Korea, Vietnam, and Japan, where as well the Soviet Union and Communist China are crashing with the West. So India was a little bit, despite I don't want to be offensive, you are not the center of the world. And that is, of course, it's a lot of important population center, but indeed, as long as there is no big crisis, nobody is looking to India or Pakistan, and that's the truth. And that's why you got away in the big confrontation between Russia or Soviet Union and America and the West. You were basically just a sideshow, and that's why India got away with it. And then there was also this bad conscience in a way, this anti-colonial movement that we always think we were in the debt to India, and from Gandhi to Nehru to now Modi, and his foreign minister is especially bad in that one. He is always trying to play that card extremely hard, that we are
mm,
all guilty for what we did to India. In
mm,
truth, the reality is that the British colonial system was quite brutal, obviously.
mm,
They
mm,
suppressed several revolutions and they kept, but the system which the British have seen in India before, the Moguls and the dynasties, were also very brutal systems.
correct.
Yeah? The British just did. They have unified the continent, which was in constant war. And by their superior firepower and their superior colonial system, they have basically unified a continent which was never meant to be united.
Correct.
It was no basis for unity, but just geography. There was nothing like ethnic, linguistic, cultural entities which should have united such a huge region, which is the British Empire in India, from today's Pakistan, Bangladesh to Burma. It's Sri Lanka. It's unbelievable big.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
And this was never meant to be. But the British were simply so superior in their technology and in their institutional setup that they could unite step by step the whole thing. And then in the moment of the breakup, when the British basically, because they were winning the World War II, but it was bankrupting them.
Yeah.
So basically in 1947, the British were bankrupt. They didn't leave India because of mercy or because of some kind of goodwill or some understanding that they should. They were simply having no money anymore, and they were in a fiscal collapse, and then they ran away. And that was also very wrong, because the normal way, which I always say, I'm very much against this kind of partition which happened in 1947, because it's very bloody. If you just conquer a territory, you are the empire, and
Yeah.
then you run away, and then you leave everything in shatters, and
Yeah.
then you let the people fight it out. then
Yeah.
exactly what happens is a two-state solution in a sense, where
Yeah.
two brutal dictators dominate the rest. They find a division line and they kill everybody in between. And
Yeah.
that's exactly where the Sikhs were the victims, but many Muslims were the victims, many Hindus were the victims.
Right.
It was the most brutal way to do. I just run away and let the bullies fight it out. So
Right.
you have a two bully situation, and they have basically suppressed everybody else ever since. Yeah.
Right.
And that's, of course, very unfortunate because I'm advocating always according to the Fehlinger doctrine.
Right.
I advocate the breakup of Russia, China, and India
Right.
according to the internal division lines of the country in a
Right.
peaceful process. So, for example, India has several states, like I think it's, and you have to help me that it's 28 states or
29 states. Yeah.
29 states. So,
Yeah.
my proposal for India is to be 29 new states
Yeah.
according to the existing lines and
Yeah.
not according to ethnicity. I don't want,
Right.
I'm also not arguing for the Sikhs to have a state and to kill
Right.
everybody else there. Yeah. That
Exactly.
would be crazy. Yeah.
It
If you
will be
want to
crazy. Yeah.
build the
It'll
border.
be against the very principles that we are fighting it for, which
Exactly.
is self determination and equality.
Exactly. And a modern state is built on freedom,
Yeah.
respect for human rights. It's not a religious state, it's not an ethnic state, but it's a ethnically religious neutral state.
Yeah.
That's the idea. And
Well,
everybody who lives there can then go into his own business and live freely. And
yeah.
then there is respect. And we should have done that in 47 already. It would
Correct.
have been much better to have 28 or maybe 15 new states,
Yeah.
and then there would not have been the power in one center like New Delhi or in Pakistan
Exactly.
to basically have so much power to suppress everybody. But
Right.
when you allow a 600 million empire to be a state, then
Right.
of course the majority, the leading group inside says that's you see in Africa in many cases as well. You see this in that way. It's the Hindu. They are not the absolute majority in the country, but they are big enough to be
Yeah.
the dominant majority. And
Yeah.
then the temptation is very good to take all the resources of the natural
Yeah.
resources and
Yeah.
all the military might and to
Yeah.
give it only to your sons and to your
Yeah.
daughters and to your friends and to your cronies and all the
Yeah.
guys with beards or with a turban or who look a little bit different,
Yeah. They
they
are the enemy.
to
Just
get
they are the
nothing.
enemy. Yeah.
That's
But
the whole
that's
idea of India. And
yeah.
this is not democracy. This is not the rule of law. And this is just kind of dictatorship of the majority. And
Yeah.
this is a perversion of democracy. It's a kind of persiflage, however to call it in English, of democracy. And now we have really to discuss the Indian case. And I think the dissolution of India is the much better way.
Yeah, yeah. I think the language is a very good marker of a nation, and so you will see in India there are like roughly 18 20 like distinct languages, and the state boundaries are based upon linguistic thing. So today the state boundaries reflect separate nations. Like Punjab is a nation, and then you will see like Kerala is a nation in itself because their culture, their way of life is very different. It's very much like Europe. Uh, and
Yes.
so it's kind of really set up that these states can be independent nations, and the moment that happens, you will see that there will be no animosity between India, Pakistan. Nuclear weapons will go off, trade will open up, because these nations have no animosity with each other. It is when they become Indian and they have to keep everything together, then they have to create this idea of, oh, we are one, and then we have to keep this together, and it creates a mess, as you said. One of the things I have to, you are also an economist, Gunther. Uh, of Let us suppose a situation that India is, decolonized, and these states become, and we saw that experiment between 91 when India reformed of it, when the central government cut down some of its power. We did see a lot of Western investment come in, jobs grow, which all that has been reversed by now in India again. So when India is really decolonized, you will see these nations do trade and progress. And will that also not help lessen the competition that is between the US and China today? Because you will see the actual manufacturing, low end manufacturing, and all that moving to India, which today I think the big reason for the China US rivalry is also the fact that China handles more than 80% of the manufacturing. If that
Okay.
naturally balances out, the underlying reasons for this rivalry might just vanish.
Look, I don't think so. Don't take India too seriously, otherwise you fall in the Modi trap. I know that you think many people in India, and that's a natural thing. It's nothing bad. I also think that Austria is the most important country,
Mm,
America the most important, but nobody is the most important country, and
mm,
not everything is about India at the end of the day. And the
right.
rivalry between China and India and America will not go away just because India goes away. It
Mm,
is a very big rivalry because we lost China to the communists in 1949. The same tragic moment when we had this tragic separation of India. It was 2 years later. The communists, with the help of the Soviet Union, took over the biggest country in the world, China. And since then, China is run by the communists in a very bad way. The last 20 years, with the help of the West, the Chinese could integrate in the world economy by joining the World Trade Organization and being access to the European and American market. But think about, it's always the consumers who rule the world. It's us, not the producers. So the
mm,
Chinese are very dependent on the American market, and
mm,
Trump has now cut them partly out of the American market. So this rivalry will always exist, no matter if India exists or not. So this is not about you. This is about China being communist and being now also very successfully able to project power outside, financially and militarily. And this will be challenging the American and the European supremacy. And so you will always have this kind of rivalry no matter what is happening in India. Nevertheless, India has a good chance to develop. The new countries can be part of the global manufacturing chain and of the value creation of the free world, which India today is already. Parts of India have really developed as well, because
mm,
also your country has opened up and has left the socialist tradition of the first period during the Cold War. Basically, India was a socialist country.
right, right,
Where you were not a communist country, but you were a socialist country. This was the
right,
philosophy. The Congress was a socialist party. They
right.
were a anti-colonial revolutionary movement. A little bit less revolution, maybe in the case of the Congress, but they were a socialist party, and you were a socialist economy. You have just opened when the Soviet Union fell, but you have
Right,
not opened completely, because then there was a lot of nationalism in your country, and a lot of protectionism, and everything must be protected, because this kind of ideological mix of socialism,
right,
anti-Western kind of anti-colonial protectionism has left you much poorer than, for example, China. Even
right,
communist China is now developing at whatever 22 trillion GDP, an enormous number, while India is always very happy to have overtaken the United Kingdom, which is maybe wonderful in the terms of imperial pride and kind of we did it. But the United Kingdom today is an economy with 67 million people, and you have 1.4 billion. So
very
you are
well said.
proud. You produce the same like a country of 70 million, let's say, while you are 20 times bigger. And you
Yeah,
have really done it. You have really achieved it. Congratulations. Yeah. This is the truth. India is
yeah,
much, India in, you're not the center of the world, but
yeah,
potentially you could be the richest region of the world. By the
right,
way, you have been in many parts of the ancient history, you
right,
have been much richer than Europe,
right,
maybe not much richer than China. China was also very developed, and
right,
also parts of Arabia were. But in general, I would say that the most of the economic historians would agree that India was, with all its resources, people, and conditions and geography, it
correct,
has been most of the history the richest part of the world.
correct,
And you could be the richest part of the world again, but you are not. And why are you not? Because even resource poor Europe is much richer. We are actually about 20 times richer than India today on average. And
correct,
the communist China is much richer, which is
correct,
also not the law of nature. It's actually very unnatural in any way. And
correct,
you are there because why? Because you have a bad economic policy. You are
right,
very close still today. You are very protectionist. You are very insecure political entity because of the crime of your creation. You are
right,
from the beginning suppressing a lot of people, depriving them of opportunities, keeping these socialist things alive. and you have not the legitimacy of the people, because many people in India today don't feel part of the system, because
Right.
you still have this very immoral system of castes. That means that you put people in boxes, like you are born poor, you stay poor. This
Right.
is absolute outrage and totally unacceptable and economically very bad. From an
Right.
economic perspective, you now must have a political system which allows everybody to prosper and to live up to his potential. And when
Right.
you put him from the birth in a box of poor and of no opportunities, then his whole life he will be just a kind of a very simple person, not producing a lot,
Right.
because he had this kind of opportunities, and it's the state depriving, it's your society in India depriving him or her of these opportunities, and
Right.
therefore this is economically extremely inefficient. So this kind of injustices of the internal social structure,
Right.
but also the non-inclusion of minorities. Yeah, when you, for
Mm.
example, and guess you are not living in India or in Khalistan
No,
at the
I'm in US now. Yeah, I'm not in
in
Khalistan
US.
anymore. Yeah,
So
I
a
call it
lot of
occupied Khalistan. So people say Khalistan will be found. Khalistan is always there. It is just occupied. We are not creating a new
exactly.
country. We are just getting back our right for self determination. So
You
we are
you
just
know that
occupying.
it's also better for me not to go to Punjab, because the police in Punjab is looking for me. They made a complaint
Oh
and they blocked my Twitter account, and they wrote me, you are whatever, a terrorist because you're for Khalistan. I
no,
better don't
you
go.
have to be careful. They were caught running death squads in US, the Indian state. There's actually a trial going on in New York, and they were
I
trying to
only go
assassinate
to
this.
I only go to Punjab restaurants in Vienna, and I don't go to Indian restaurants, so I'm safe and nobody will harm me, because I'm actually a very nice guy. I have nothing against Indians and Hindu. I just want a better life for anybody. But I tell, if Mr. Modi sends death squads to Canada, to US, and or to Europe, he will pay a very heavy price for that. Because the thing is, if you behave like that, there's always a price with that. You can kill somebody, yes, but he will be a murderer. And the Western people, the public opinion of the free world, will always understand ever closer that Modi's system, which is killing its opponents outside, is an unfair, unlawful state without the legitimacy to govern. And once you've lost that in the eyes of the free world, it doesn't take a lot for NATO bombs to come, because once you kill the people, once you kill their own minorities, there will be consequences. You have seen it in the case of Yugoslavia. Once Serbia has started really to mass expel the Albanians, and once they started to kill them village by village, family by family, burning houses, then the Western opinion was so strong that the politicians had to act. And this is how it works. Yeah, it's nowhere the Western politicians who want to do military interventions. It's not like that we think about it. Who can we attack tomorrow? This is what this foreign minister thinks, that we are like the bad guys who are thinking, sitting in the airplanes, and who can they bomb tomorrow? This is not how it works. But when the outrageous atrocities of states against their own people are getting so big that you see it on the television or on Twitter every single day, like we see it today in Nigeria, where the Nigerian government allows the terrorists to kill the Christian people. And then the outrage is getting very big. And then the politicians have the urge to act, because they're the representatives of the people. And we don't want the Christians in Nigeria, in Biafra, to be killed. We don't want the Sikhs to be killed in India. We actually don't want anybody to be killed, and especially not the Ukrainians by Russia. So we are basically the opinion of the free world. We want everybody to live in peace and in
right.
security. And if you don't secure that, if you don't guarantee that as a state, then I would be very careful with your next steps, because we
Maybe.
are now very powerful. You will see also we will win the war in Ukraine. We will not do any kind of surrender thing, as Mr. Trump, who is unfortunately a very confused person. Yeah, we will not surrender. We will definitely win there, and we will also tackle the Indian issue. Will it be ex-India? We will see. It depends very much how Modi is acting now. If he goes all in towards Putin, he will
Mhm.
pay a very heavy price, and you will be very happy because your country, your Khalistan, will be very soon a reality. If he understands where the wind is blowing, then he will maybe kind of transform India into a federal union and be some kind of European Union of India. That's
Right.
all fine. I'm not knowing the future. I'm not,
Right.
but I tell you, when you behave badly there as a state leader, there will always be consequences and you will
Right.
pay a very heavy price. You can exploit people for some time, but you
Right.
cannot continue tyranny endlessly.
I think maybe you also hit upon maybe that is what India's secret sauce has been. They have never let the outrage against their actions grow above a certain level. It has always been around that threshold, but it's been constant for 80 years. And I think that is what they master, which is hide their underbelly and what they do within India and not let that come up. And I think now it has come up as world is taking more attention on India, and they're kind of in the microscope. What is India doing with Russia? Because now they're big enough to be a factor in geopolitics. And having said that, I know because your listeners are also going to listen to this podcast. Just my opinion, because I was raised in that socialist India when I was born, and I had seen those days. I won't call it socialist. I think it was as communist as anything else, maybe even more brutal than Soviet Union in terms of the power of the state. And I have seen this play out multiple times. India will never ever leave the side of the communist world. It's never going to happen. You can keep twisting their arm. They will play with you, and then they will their because their hearts are never going to be with you. Okay, because in their mind they admire the centralized state, because the problem of the Indian rulers is to create an Indian nation which does not exist. Chinese don't have that problem. China is primarily a Han nation. Russia had that problem. It got rid of some bit of that problem, but it is still not the whole Russian Federation is still not Russia. Russians or one ethnicity or one nation. But India has that problem multiplied by 100. And because it's an empire, it has to be a brutal communist centralized state, and it's never going to side with the Western democracies ever, is my understanding. And I think it while it is on I think while it is also on the Western, I think, think tanks to realize this eventuality rather than keep thinking short term. But with that said,
I want to say also my apologies because when I was at the start of the war, I made a similar podcast with one Indian think tank. And it was on the 23rd of February. I was appealing for India to join the free world. I was making offers like free trade agreement with the European Union, membership in the Organization of Economic Development, OECD in Paris. And that I was really optimistic because I was a typical person in Europe believing in Indian democracy and in India as a potential ally of the free world. And I was really naively believing all these things, yeah, because that's the common position in Europe. And now, 3.5 years, I was watching and discussing India. But 3.5 years, India has more and more chosen the wrong side. And it's not today in the age of Twitter and X, yeah, everybody can have information. So on purpose, India choose the wrong side. Yeah, it is not
exactly.
that they are like poor people, farmers who don't know and they have never
Yeah,
seen the
yeah,
world and they don't understand what's going on. No, no,
yeah,
no. Mr. Modi understands very well, and the billions of Indians understand very well. And the
exactly.
political system has opted towards China and Russia. So
Right,
here must be consequences. And the only way India is now in the last month a little bit reacting is by massive American and European pressure.
right,
So the
right,
only way you must punish India very hard, and then they
right,
listen. Yeah? So that's exactly what we are doing here, and that's why I make this ex-India campaign, because we really have learned that India, there is no goodwill under the present system. There is
right.
no will of cooperation, and there is no learning. This scandalous man who is your foreign minister, this Indian gentleman, I don't want to even mention
Jayashankar,
it.
Jayashankar.
He came to Austria and making offensive and really terrible undiplomatic statements like we, the Austrians, would have colonized India.
So that is what they're great at, gaslighting. Okay, so to
It's
blame
getting
you.
ridiculous. It's
Yes, it's
getting
ridiculous.
ridiculous, because what we have to do now, I can apologize for the British Empire, but really we were not part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No,
the thing
apparently,
is,
the Sikhs are also responsible for our own genocide, as per
yeah,
them.
that's maybe what
And
he says as well. I don't know that, but that's another big topic we can discuss about this thing about the crimes against India
yeah,
against the Khalistan. But on the general level, I want to apologize for my mistakes and my naivety, and I call now to have no free trade agreement with India from the European Union, no membership in OECD. We
yeah,
must isolate India. We must punish India, and we must also have no trade with India. We must sanction India very hard. We must give very, very much the stick.
yeah,
And I'm really sorry because I'm a nice guy, but the only way Mr. Modi and his foreign minister do understand the things is
yeah.
by really intensive economic and political isolation.
Yeah, that's true. The one just we will discuss maybe later in detail, but I think one thing that we probably West has to really think deep is there was no benefit that India was going to get by siding with Russia, but they still did it. There
Mhm.
was actually the benefit, all the benefits lay on actually siding with the Western democracies, whether it was economic, whether it was political, social, but they went ahead and did that. So that irrational act is what I think it is time for the world to understand, that India is not a rational state, that
And you
it's a
see
military.
also the oligarchic nature of the Indian economy and the Indian tyranny, because there's always different groups in economics who are profiting. So by
Mhm.
India joining the free world, everybody in India would profit. You
Correct.
could be 20 times richer over the if you repeat it like we have done, or the Americans say, free
Mhm.
economy. You could be really tremendously richer because you have all the inputs, all the opportunities. But
Right.
by choosing this Russian way, only a few friends of Mr. Modi's oligarchy, of course,
Yes.
they got richer because they're the owners of the oil refineries and of the oil trade. Yeah. So that's probably 10 people in India. I don't know who own these refineries, or 15. I don't know if you have shareholders or how you have it, individual owners. I don't know. But it's certainly a few families who basically are the majority shareholders of the oil distribution and oil refining system, and they got filthy rich by getting cheaper oil. I'm sure they didn't give the cheaper oil to the consumers.
No,
But
no, it's not. India
I
has the
thought
most expensive oil.
you have the oil prices at the pump will not be massively cheaper than in the rest
Yeah,
of the world. But for
yeah,
them, they got this sanctioned oil and they transformed it into refineries in product for the consumer markets of India and the rest of the world. And
yeah.
they got really rich. And I'm sure they gave a lot of nice presents for, I don't know what is the Hindu, the Diwali is your festival, the festival, yeah.
Their
In
festival,
Diwali,
yes.
I guess it's like the Christians sitting at Christmas together, and
That's right.
then the friends of the oligarchs, they come to Mr. Modi at the Diwali, and then they have nice envelopes with big caches of millions of euros. I don't know, suitcases. I don't know. Maybe they have
Yeah,
secret bank accounts. I don't know how they do it in India these
yeah,
days. But I'm sure the oligarchs have a way to say thank you to Mr. Modi. And this
yeah,
is a few families getting filthy rich and
yeah,
then driving Lamborghinis and Ferraris. And the most of the other people who are not in this kind of value chain of oligarchy, and they
yeah,
have to emigrate to where? Where are all the poor people of India going? To the United States and to the European Union to make a safe and secure and better life. And this
yeah,
is exactly the unfair system which Modi has created. It's a typical post-socialist transformation oligarchy where the
yeah,
few get very rich, and he has some nice economic data because of his very low level of start. And then he says, I'm such a wonderful guy. I'm the great democracy. In reality, he's a typical kind of Russian style crony oligarchy, which is another proof why this system is failed and India must be dismantled.
I would say they are better than they are more skilled than Russians, because Russians get a bad name. They have a bad reputation. Like the Indians roam around with the, hey, we are these nice guys of the town. So they're, so I would say in that sense they are more skilled in playing the world around them. So
Yeah, but also the Russians did it. But the Russians were in the 2000s going exactly around like this. Yeah, from 2000 to 2008. Yeah, Mr. Putin was traveling the world as a peacemaker and as a friendly guy, as an ally of the West in the fight against Islamic terrorism, etc. But he decided to go militarily into Georgia in 2008. He decided to go into Ukraine and Crimea in 2014. He decided to go into whatever Libya and other countries, Afghanistan, and of course he decided for the big war. And therefore, his narrative of being a friendly man is not so anymore existing. So he is definitely the enemy. But India has up to now not really waged any war of aggression,
mhm.
and with some minor incidents at both borders in the north. But nevertheless, that would be the next step, of course, when they really go into aggressive mode, which I hope they will not. And I can just counsel them caution, because don't misunderestimate the West. The free world is always very strong, and we are tackling our enemies step by step.
Gunther, I can promise you, once Khalistan is free, if Russia is ever going to invade or leave Russia, like any tyrannical power, you will see the Khalsa forces coming there and actually fighting against it. It will not just even be moral support, because it's part and parcel of our religion and very core and culture to fight tyranny and to have a religious equality. And yeah, and so I think that is why it is very important. I feel that we have to free Khalistan from this leftover British colonial legacy called the Indian Empire, because India is not a nation, India is not a culture, India is not a cuisine, India is a name of an empire. We have different nations who are there. And so for the Khalistan nation, the Sikhs have been, fighting this since the British left, where the Sikhs ran a very, peaceful struggle for almost 40 years for India to federalize and to have a full federal structure like in United States we have. But then the Indian state brutally stamped that out. They sent the army to attack Golden Temple, which is our holiest place. And then after that, they conducted genocide of thousands of Sikhs in 3 days in national capital. And then for 10 years, and I was a child because I had seen that, it was basically an elimination of entire young generation of Sikhs, where in my estimates and in experts' estimate, more than 100,000 Sikh youth were picked up, murdered extrajudicially, not just murdered, tortured for a period of 10 years. And
Terrible crimes, terrible crimes. India must definitely apologize and pay reparations and make something like actually India should be exed. I think that's the best way.
I think
Khalistan must
that's
be
it.
free,
Yeah, the idea
and
of
we
the end,
should
the time to
commemorate that.
yeah, the word India has to go away. It has to become like Europe. It has to disassociate
Yeah,
itself with the state. And so now the Khalistan movement has kind of come again on the fore. It had kind of waned a bit. There was quietness because there was so much repression in Khalistan. But now in diaspora, especially, we have seen this, referendum being started, and it has by organization called Sex for Justice. And then there's other lot of news in the Western media. Many big newspapers have written about it, and and that has put like the Indian state really on the back foot, and they seem to be like coming really hard at it. How do you look at this whole situation?
no, I think that's a very good movement to go on the global market of demands, of ideas, yeah, and be on X like you are, and Six for Justice to make this referendum now tomorrow in Ottawa. This is the way to really win the hearts and minds of the free world, and that's decisive, yeah. Is no
Mhm.
longer an armed struggle or terrorism. This I absolutely say no. I say very much this is the way, yeah, posting, making it clear, collecting money, collecting signatures, collecting the support of the free world, yeah, and delegitimize India politically. And by them, also calling for de-recognition of India and for the recognition of Khalistan. What you need, and I advise that as well for the ex-Russia and for ex-Nigeria, it's very important to have a government in exile, which is best based in the United States of America, and there to lobby the United States Senate and Congress for freedom and for recognition. You need a legitimate president, you need a legitimate prime minister, and then you have them. Maybe it's today's world of the internet is anyhow not so important. Where do you sit?
Mm.
You sit here in Vienna or in Washington, D.C., but the best way is to sit in Washington, D.C., because there's the most important government of the free world, and then to have regular elections, to have legitimacy, to have taxes. Yeah, that's
Mm.
also, I'm very much for flat taxes, but it's also important to collect some money at the top. And
Yes.
then to really work. For example, I also support the Biafra Christians in Nigeria, and
Yep.
they have already independence declaration, exile government sitting in the US, and they have now very big support in America, for example, and all of the free world. So this
Right.
is very much the next steps for Khalistan. And then to go to the UN, write the application, declare your independence, make very clear how your state will look like and that you are part of the free world. And then you apply for, like Palestine in a way, you apply for the UN. You make an
Yep.
application and to go. And this is the way you simply ignore India. Basically, you do as if it would already be in dissolution. And then
Yep.
you go ahead and you declare your own independence, your own government, your own president, your own parliament. And
Yep.
okay, you prepare all the institutions and for the moment, and then you can return to your capital and to your homeland. And one day
Yep.
it will come. And with the changes, because, always see it like this, the present world order, which we have created in 1945, is very
Yep.
much protecting also the states like India and China and
Right.
Russia, because they're very much the beneficiary of this world order, which was also created by Stalin. Yeah? Let's not forget. Yeah. He
Mm.
was also one of the winners, and he very much created this world order, and it has fermented and cemented. Also, the Russia today is still in the Security Council, and China, and they all say they don't want this world order because it's in principle a good world order. But I say we can build a little bit of an improved world order without Russia in its present form, without China it's in present form, and without India
India.
in its present
Yes.
form. So the more they go against us and they go against the free world, because it's not
Right.
just me, it's not personal, yeah, but it's a
Right.
bit personal because they kill a lot of people internally and externally. But they always complain about this present system is against biased. It's
Right.
not in reality, it's their protection. But the more they provoke us, the more they attack us, the more they attack innocent people and kill them,
Right.
the more we have this impetus, because the Western world and the free world is very much status quo driven. Our
Mm.
politicians don't want change. They think
Right.
it's good to have Russia, to have China, India, because change is always costly. It has a
Right.
cost in money and in blood, and you want to avoid that. And then the thing is, the more they raise the stakes and complain
Right.
about the system and try to destroy it, we
Right.
might also think to take it down, but we start taking it down with taking down Russia, India, and China. And
Right.
this will be
So,
the risk. So you can expect.
in terms of order to take them down, will it make more strategic sense to? I feel this is my opinion because it could be because I feel I'm the center of the world, but I'm trying to put an objective hat that if India is axed first and India is decolonized first, do you think that the spirit of that freedom and liberty will actually organically spread to the nations colonized by China and Russia? Is that a more
The
easier path
center
because
of
it's
the
easier
evil
to?
empire, the
Yeah.
center, Harshit, the center of the evil empire is Russia. So
Mm.
Russia is the one who has broken the peace. Russia broke the peace in 2008, 2014, and in 2022. Russia is the most biggest problem, and Russia is behind. Russia gives the legitimacy and the backing towards China and India. So Russia will be the first one to break because they will lose the war and their system is in collapse, economically and morally and politically, ideologically. So Russia will be the first to fall. And then we will see how that moment is used by the various independence movement, because it's not us axing India. It's the people of Khalistan, it's the people of other regions, it's the
Yep.
Tamils, there are so many groups inside, or the East
Right.
Turkestan when it comes to the Chinese. It's
Yeah.
not, and these systems, empires do fall from in itself. Yeah, they
Mm.
fall mostly when they lose wars or economically collapse. but it's very fewly that somebody else comes to attack them. We will definitely, just to make it very clear, we're not going to attack India. Nobody will divide India. This is a misunderstanding if somebody has this idea.
Yeah,
It is the internal inconsistency and structural imbalances of the India
yeah,
which leads to its own internal collapse. In the
yeah,
moment when the Russian Empire will collapse, then it's the moment for the Indian Empire to collapse. And you
yeah.
have just to be legitimately ready to take the succession of this ex-Indian empire.
This is a great moment to also send a message, Gunther, because I tell you, this interview will be listened by more Indians than Khalistanis because they have been tracking you like anything and they track my work also like anything. And I'm sometimes surprised why they do that. But a lot of Indians, in millions, I would say close to a billion, have been brainwashed by the Indian state. And they believe that it is the West which is falling, they are done with, and they are the now going to be the new world order leaders, and they are going to write how this new world order will be. and
Sure.
and I frequently get, because I still have friends who are Hindu and Indian nationalists who are in India, and sometimes you talk to them on phone. They say, Harjeet, leave West, it is done with, come back to India. I said, for what? For the misery and poverty? Like, I don't know, but like, what do you have to say to those people, the billion Indians who think that West is gone? It is their
Yeah.
time to be the kind of.
I come from Austria. I'm broadcasting now from Vienna. And Vienna, there was a guy, he was called Hitler, and he believed as well that the West is gone. And he may started a big war because he thought the West is gone, America is weak, it's decadent. If you read his speeches, if you are interested, I don't recommend it, but you can. It's online. You can read all his speeches. It's very similar like this foreign minister of India. The West is down. America is decadent. Yeah. Mr. Roosevelt is an old, crippled man who can blah blah blah, and all these things. Yeah, you the same talking points. The same talking points. Yeah,
Mhm.
and then 6 years later, he shot himself in the bunker because he started a big war and he lost it. And he killed not only 6 million Jews, he didn't kill so many people from the Soviet Union and so many Europeans, but most of all, and additionally, he killed so many Germans because
Mhm.
so many of his Germans believed this bullshit that the West is down. And the result was he was then in the last moments, he was saying, if you're not able to win, then also my German people must be perishing. So such a nice leader he was. Yeah, he was saying, if you cannot win, you have to die. Huh? And so exactly this kind of philosophy that the West is down is very famous in my country and in Germany, and it failed completely. I want to remind you also the West is down philosophy was Mr. Khrushchev, Stalin, Brezhnev, and all these people. I don't know if you still remember the name, but they were the leaders of
I
an
know.
ancient empire called Soviet Union. And I don't remember the last survival rest of the Soviet Union is now with Putin in power. They are doing the last survival fight now, and they think it's a survival fight. In fact, it's an aggression, and they will also disappear. And in some years, nobody will know their name anymore, and there will be other countries instead of them. So all these philosophies, the West is going down, and all this, the free world is going down, the India is the future. This is all total nonsense, and historically, it is absolutely wrong. And when you look at, again, I can also make economic arguments when you think, oh, we will see. And now in Europe, also a lot of people think the economy of America will go down in the financial crisis. And now you see America is still dominating the world in the tech giants, in Nvidia and in Apple. And there will be a next crisis coming. Maybe there will be stock market crash, and then everybody say the West will be down, America will be down. And 5 years later, America is still leading the world. And
Yeah,
they think.
I've been 13 years in US. I am
So
now sick and tired. I'm 13. I've been now 13, 14. This is 14 years in the US. And every day when I open the media, I have felt like tomorrow US is gone.
yeah,
and,
exactly. So
and
it's still around. And my prediction here, as I make the claim, also in 200 years, there will be somebody in the world saying America is going down, but it will be an even much richer and better world
yes.
order. and it will be run by America. And why this? There's also ideological reason. It's not just I say this or I want this or my wish or my prayer. No, it's because they have institutions which really work and they're very flexible to respond to crises. Yeah, the way that is. Yeah, when there is a shock, a tyranny, it is crushed. When the democracy is in the shock, it can adopt, it can build new institutions, it can
Yeah.
maneuver like a boxer. You
Yeah.
crash him, he's coming back. And
Yeah.
this is the way. Why? Because there is two things. There's individual freedom and rights of everybody. So when you go, for example, Hajit, you go in America, you are like American. You have a beard, you look a bit
Yeah.
different, but they
Yeah.
say, you're American, you are here, good, yeah?
Yeah.
And you can prosper. Nobody is touching you. Oh, Mr.
Exactly.
Trump's eyes is not touching you. That's another problem. But anyhow, the thing is, in general, this freedom gives a
Yeah.
legitimacy. Legitimacy is the power on which the West rests. Yeah. Do we
Exactly.
think? Do you think that the system that rules you, because everybody is ruled by a certain system in India, do you agree with it?
Yeah.
That's what the word legitimacy means. Do
Yeah.
you think it's fair? Do you
Yeah.
think it's treating you good? And do you have opportunities? And this we have. And of
Yeah.
course, Russia is attacking it and saying it doesn't exist. And Russia today says that the Americans are unhappy. And it's absolutely good to be unhappy with your system because it's part of legitimacy. Because
Right.
you can go on YouTube and say, I'm unhappy as American or European. And that's
Yeah.
nobody does you anything. You
Yeah.
get many likes, maybe, but no policeman comes and tortures you. And this kind of freedom leads to the expression of rights, and this leads to legitimacy. And legitimacy gives you the power of the consent of the people. And when you have this, you can survive all the crises, you attract more people, you attract more capital, and you can build systems which last for basically ever
Right.
because of the flexibility of the institutions and the legitimacy of the people. And this is not the case in Russia. It's one person who wants this war. It's one person who wages this war. Once he's gone, everything looks very different. And the same is in China in a communist system, and the same is in India where you have this majority tyranny. And
Right.
so you can bet on the future. We want to build a fairer system. And the reason why many Indians are now much richer than 30 years, because you basically joined our system. And our
Exactly.
system, you have only gradually opened. You could be
Mhm.
much richer. And the normal situation of the world is that India is the richest region of the world, and you were is super rich
Yeah.
because of many geographical and economic factors.
Yeah.
But you can only be that if you develop the legitimacy. And that's why axing India and building a more legitimate successor states where the people really feel at home.
Yeah.
Because it's always about sharing things, sharing responsibility, taxation, security, all these things. So states must have the feeling of cohesion. You
Yeah.
must feel that is your state.
Yeah.
And this
So,
is then very powerful. And once this is, you can live in peace and happiness. But the
yeah.
only thing, Hajit, I have the next interview lined up at 10:30.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I have
Sure.
to take one coffee. I
Yeah.
enjoy our conversation, and it's now 1 hour. I don't want to be cutting short, but
Sure.
let's make one more statement because all the philosophy tomorrow in Ottawa is the referendum. Please, everybody who is watching, tweet and go. If you can participate, go. And please, let's the Canadian authorities, let's Ottawa be successful. Show that Canada is part of the free world and that Khalistan can be a powerful contribution to the free world. And this referendum may be the starting point for independence of Khalistan and ex-India. And that's what I pray and hope for, and it will be.
Thank you so much, Gunther. I think that's a great note to end it at. I appreciate your time. I know we went over, and I appreciate us discussing all these other big aspects as well. But reality is, at the end, this is where we can take action. I hope everybody who listens, make sure you go and vote at the referendum. I think that's one way you can contribute positively to, a freer world. But thanks, Gunther. I appreciate. And one thing you have to promise before dropping, we will have a government in exile of Khalistan. You have to get us the Austrian government support at minimum, if not entire European Union when
For
that is there.
sure. I will tweet for that and I will fight for that. I will work for that. And, it's a question of European Union policy, of course. It's not so easy. But
Yeah,
first of all, do the Khalistan in the exile government. This is very important.
very important.
And
Thank you. I
tomorrow,
appreciate
best of luck. And Hachit, thanks for the invitation. All the
it. Thank
best.
you.
And let's do it again after
Okay.
the event, after the referendum. We can do in December 1 hour session.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thank you.
You drop it now?
Yep, I will drop you from here and I will wrap up and maybe open another live stream. Thank you so much, Gunther. We'll drop it.
Thanks
Yeah.
a lot. You're very welcome.